My name is Chris Graham. This is another edition of FSB Meets, and today we have got a bit of an industry legend with us. It's SBC's Rasmus Sojmark. How are you doing, Rasmus?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Looking forward to this, definitely. Let's start with the start of your career, really. I was looking through your LinkedIn to prepare for this interview. I noticed that you were a sergeant in the Danish Navy. Tell us a bit about that, please.
Oh, that's a long time ago. It's back in 98, 99. I mean, it wasn't really planned for, but when I was in the military for like 6 months or so, they needed recruits to go into sergeant school and help train upcoming teams for the military. And I've done quite well, at that point. So I didn't really have a choice. They said, "Oh, you can continue as a sergeant, or you can go sailing for like a couple of years." I said, "What?" And I said, "Fine. This is this okay. I'll do it." And I went in as a sergeant, and I really appreciate I did that. It was a great decision, and you learn a lot from that because you at an early age of 18. I think I was 18 and a half at that point. And suddenly you go through a very tough school of a lot of psychology and physio and all that. And you just learn a lot of things at an early age about yourself, but also how to work as a leader and how to address different situations. It can be very hardcore situations, obviously, when it comes to training yourself for war.
And let's move on to 2009, a pivotal year for you. You founded SBC. How did that come along? What was the vision for SBC back in 2009?
Well, I think if you remember, UIGA was passed in 2006, and there was a lot of things around the industry changing, and forward from there was a lot of focus certainly on casinos, and there was poker, and there was bingo as well. Sports betting just seemed to be a very much necessary evil. Like a lot of money and investment had to go into this with the trading department. So sports betting was kind of like growing and then suddenly starting to see a slump. And I was working for for BetBrain, which essentially became a Matrix. So I was out there selling sports betting platforms, at an early age, and it was just hard to go to events and see that sports betting wasn't as primary, an area of the industry as I liked it to be.
Yeah.
So I just sort of looked around, and there was a lot of key people in the industry that love sports betting, very passionate about it. And I thought, okay, let's try and bring these people together. And London was still a hub for sports betting at that point. So when I sort of tried to speak to a few key people, affiliates and operators and suppliers, and said, "You interested if we're going to organize for like 40, 50 people to get together?" And they were very keen on this. So I managed to get some money behind the bar, and we all met up. We had free drinks and just a lot of good chat and talks about the industry as a whole, and it just went really well. And then the next one was in September. That one was in March 2009, and the next one was then in September 2009. And I remember one of my guests were Carsten Curl, the founder of Sport Radar. So very early on, we had some prominent people there, and they were very supportive of this. So from there on, it just continued, and it started to be these quarterly gatherings of sports betting professionals, experts meeting up to talk about the industry. For me, the turning point was in 2013, late 2013, when I hired in Andrew McCarran as my MD and as a journalist to start running SBC News with more proper day-to-day content. And Andy was working at Betting Business at that point, and he used to do a Q&A interview with me after we met in Montreal in Canada at Gixie way back. And we did that in 2009, and I still have it framed up. And then 4 years later, I spoke to him and said if he was keen on this opportunity of growing SBC with me, and I managed to convince him. And he joined in, and we just started growing the business from there. We didn't really have any plans, but looking at other organizers and how the event is a big opportunity, the event part of the industry, then we had our first event with betting on football
Sure.
6 years ago. And then when you have this event, you obviously start seeing new opportunities. So I think I wouldn't say you started out like having all these ideas of you want to be the best and the biggest. You just enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah.
Remember, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, we were and we are still very much sports betting passionate people. I mean,
Sure. You bet regularly. Do you have a strategy? Do you just bet in football? You bet in other sports? Sum it up there if you could.
you know what? I mean, I used to, when probably almost 20 years ago, I used to bet quite frequently, and then fairly large stakes as well, and I was winning money on it. I got a lot of my accounts was blocked by most of the bookmakers because I made too much money, so my stakes were limited down to like 50 pence or something like that.
Sure.
And it was good. It gave me a good deal of extra income based on being smart around it. But often it was based on having a good network of people that knew about the value in different matches. I didn't do a lot of the research myself. I just more had this good network and looked at the matches and said, this makes sense. And you got to bet early, because if you don't bet early, the odds are going to move and the value is going to go, right? That was me 10 years ago. I don't have the time to do that anymore. So what I've turned into is very much a recreational, fun better or punter now that enjoys multiples or parlays. I would, my usual betting would be a couple of matches or something, and just the fun with it. I bet what I feel I can afford, and it's more seen as a pastime, as a recreational thing that I just enjoy. I don't expect winning money from it, but I will say I still feel that pleasure of winning the bets, that it just gives me that feeling of accomplishment. You know?
Definitely. Let's talk about FSB, if you don't mind. Obviously,
I love FSB, you know that.
Good back. Show your love, Rasmus. Tell us how you've seen FSB develop over the last 11 years since you've been at SBC. How have you seen that evolution at FSB? Tell us what you love about FSB.
I'm almost part of the history of FSB. I don't know if you you know that. Maybe to a smaller extent. But I was at EIG way back, and that was the time when Dave McDowell, the CEO and founder of FSB, was pitching FSB, which FSB initially was, of course, a very innovative platform for the industry as an overall, not just sports betting platform, right? Yeah. And I remember one of the judges was Mark Blandford sitting there and judging on FSB against a number of other companies. And I know Dave McDowell did really well. He's obviously a great speaker and talker on stage and knows how to present things. So he did well. Mark Blandford came aboard. So obviously looking at those two guys, some of the biggest experts in the industry, them working together around a project like FSB is bound for success. Obviously, like any other platform, it takes time in the industry. So they took the time to build something strong. And I think that's what we see now. I think FSB has been building and improving on the product for many years, focusing on a couple of markets, key markets, and then now expanding obviously into the US as a key market and looking at other markets. So I think the FSB is certainly a key player now and key player to come as well.
Definitely. And Mark Blandford was the original FSB Meets guest. So you're the second guest of
Good choice.
FSB.
Good
so
choice.
Mark Blandford kicked it. It's a great podcast. Have a listen to that. Definitely. It's on Spotify.
I did.
Oh, top man, Rasmus. You check.
I remember he even talked about UIGA and all these things.
Yeah, he did.
Mark has more experience than most people in this industry.
Absolutely, definitely. So obviously you're talking about FSB and FSB won the Sportsbooks SBC Sportsbook Supplier of the Year award in 2018. You know, why do you think they won that award? I guess it's just, you know, a real evolution. Yeah,
absolutely, hats off, because it was a very competitive year against the likes of FSB. FSB against the likes of SB Tech and Canby and all these. So FSB did really well. I mean, in 2018, Sportsbook. Supplier of the year is a great achievement. Some very good companies in the competition like SB Tech and Canby, and FSB really won that award on the basis of what you guys have achieved with the platform that you work so hard on for so many years, and that's obviously coming to fruition now.
the Remote Darts League was FSB's big sort of feather in their cap for 2020. Were you impressed by the agility of FSB to turn that round?
I think so. I mean, obviously that game is also up for innovation of the year. I think you guys showed a lot of industry understanding and overview, and acted very proactively, very quick to create something at a time where most people were on table tennis and Belarusian football. You know, you guys could see there was a need for innovation here, and you guys did that. And I think you delivered probably better than most or any other company in the industry at that point. So hats off. Well done. Absolutely.
Let's talk about Chelsea. You've SBC are corporate partners with Chelsea. Can I ask why you picked Chelsea? Have you always been a Chelsea fan, Rasmus?
It's a funny story. You know, let's say I've always been an AC Milan fan. AC Milan has been my team since I was, 5 years old, probably when I really sort of started having a team to follow. And my favorite player was always Paolo Maldini. Probably because he was also he was an amazing player and such a great prospect early days when I started playing, and he was starting to get into the AC Milan team, and he was a left back. I played football since I was 5 years old, and I was a left back. But at the same time, you had likes of Gullit and Baresi. You know, I was a defender, and Baresi was obviously the sweeper, like an amazing player. And Gullit was just such a character, such a persona at that time, such a great player. And I had the chance to meet both of them. Even Gullit and Baresi have been, ambassadors or part of SBC events. So that's one of the great things about being an organizer. You get to meet your idols. I haven't met Maldini yet, but hopefully soon.
And just on that, Rasmus, you've met some amazing people through these SBC events. You mentioned Ruud Gullit and Franco Baresi, Peter Schmeichel, Gaspar Mendieta. Who's your favourite? Or the big football players, or Kirsty Gallagher even that you've picked for these events? Who entranced you the most?
But you know what? When I mention Maldini, right, I would say there's a string of players. I've also been an avid player of Championship Manager, like from early days. And I think when you sort of when you have that experience and grow up with so many great players. Some of my players were also Gaisca Mendieta. I loved him for being such an amazing playmaker at Valencia, and he moved to Lazio and played in Barcelona and ended up in the UK playing for Middlesbrough. But he was an outstanding player. And you mentioned Peter Schmeichel. In my book, the greatest goalkeeper of all time. Maybe Peter Cech is one of the other keepers, and obviously we got him hosting the SBC Awards on this year, so gonna meet him as well. But I think what I really love about it is I've actually become very close friends with Gaisca Mendieta. So he lives here in the UK, and we've been having lunch and dinners a few times, and he's been at the SBC Awards, and we talk about some business and different things. Peter Schmeichel has called me up a few times when he gets to London. Apparently, he's WhatsApping me, which is pretty cool. Any Dane who would appreciate the work of Peter Schmeichel and what an amazing keeper he was. So, I don't you don't really understand these things, I guess, but if you sort of talk about it, you realize this is pretty cool, And Ruud Gullit has hosted ISBC Awards. He's been talking about our events. So I think all these guys are really great guys, and it's funny. You're obviously older now, so you don't think too much of it, I guess, in the same way as when you're younger. But it's one of those things, that you just come to appreciate that that you're working with your idols,
Absolutely, yeah. Let's
But when it comes to if you don't mind me, because you asked me the question on Chelsea.
Yeah, of course.
I think there's a reason why Chelsea has become my team next to AC Milan. Obviously, normally you grow up with a team, but I used to live out in Limehouse, but then we moved to Putney in close to Fulham and Chelsea about 7 years ago, 8 years, so 8 years ago. And when we did the first event, we did it at Stamford Bridge, betting on football. So that's one reason why. There's a bit of history there with Stamford Bridge. And then you obviously have your family as well. And my daughter's 4 and a 7-year-old is avid Chelsea fans now. So it's become like a thing with the family now. We can go and watch a game on at Stamford Bridge together, and they just love it. Every time we drive by Stamford Bridge in the bus or something, they're like, Chelsea, 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 and that's incredible, because you have to live next to a big club or in proximity to have this kind of opportunity. I think with your daughters or your family to create a bond with a team, and that's certainly been Chelsea in so many areas for me. And we only have around 10-15 minutes to get to Stamford Bridge, so it also helps that we can go there more often. So definitely a family thing as well. Absolutely.
Lovely, lovely stuff. And of course, Chelsea have played for the majority of this season behind closed doors with no crowd. So let's talk about that whole situation and COVID-19. Now, let's rewind back to February and March, and I want you to take us through the moment or moments that you realised that things were changing here in terms of all the events that you'd had, corporate events you planned for 2020 were under serious threat. And a big part of your business was under attack by this virus, and the problems that were occurring.
Don't make me cry now.
Sorry, man. So just try and take us through maybe that moment, or just where you realised that the bad thing had hit the fan. To try and give an illustration of that, Rasmus.
Sure. I think the hardest part is, when you're an event company, an event organizer, you kind of start planning your year well ahead, right? So a lot of the planning for big conferences or exhibitions are by working a plan out with your partners, your suppliers, the ones sponsoring, almost 8, 9, 12, even 12 months in advance. That means you're starting to build that partnership in the year before, right? So come into 2020, a lot of the partnerships were in place and all the deals and contracts negotiated. You go to Iceland and there's things happening around, but shows are still going ahead. And you realize then early March, this is no longer going to be the case. And you initially look at it and think, okay, this is this COVID, but we're going to get through it. So let's move the events to summertime. So you start moving the events, and all you have to communicate to the partners, first case, we're talking especially the sponsors here, we will move this event. Are you okay with the new dates? Can you keep supporting us? Because obviously we already agreed this, and we need the money based on that's what our sales has been focused on. Next thing is all the speakers and everything else. There's been a lot of resource and marketing and everything else going into this that you now need to move to the next dates. But you do it because you think, okay, we're going to keep the cash flow going and the whole event plan still moving ahead full on, right? And I think we did that. Most companies did it, right? Then you start moving towards and you realize, okay, this is maybe trickier as you thought it would be. Not only because you have your partners as well, they need to plan how to build the booth and their marketing, which starts 3-4 months before. So you're looking at it and say, what's the opportunity here? Because you also don't want to push your partners to keep planning for an event if it's not going to happen, because they're going to look at you as an organizer and say, why did you not make the right decision early on? So we were just looking at thinking, this is going to be tricky. And hold on, we had an event in Barcelona coming up in September. And Barcelona was one of the worst hit cities around March, April. So it didn't look very good. And we couldn't move such a big event. So we just talked internally and said, what do we have to do here? We can move online or create all these in a virtual space. We found a good software partner that can replicate some of the physical events into virtual. But the most key thing here is, what about our partners, the one that already committed to support us? Will we be able to rely on their commitment, their support? Because without them, forget about it. I mean, we're not going to spend tons of money and be able to pay all our staff if no one wants to support it. So we were in a very tricky position. So we had to talk all the teams, marketing, sales, design, the events, and all of it, and just try and get everyone on board and say, we will move virtual with these. Here are the sales target. Can we hit these? So we decided, yes, let's do it. So based on the very quick decisions there, I think was what helped SBC to get through this year, is that we put up SBC Digital Summit in April, which was an amazing event, bigger than any other event in the industry. The interest declined a little bit because people saw so many virtual events, but that one in April was incredible. I think the only second event we had that really was a huge success because everyone wanted to be there was Betting on Sports America. We had last week. That was immensely successful as well. But we had a lot of events in between that were very good, but it was also very hard work because you got to work really hard to get everyone to want to commit, spend their time, go to the virtual experience, participate in conferences, visit the exhibitors, and all of that. And that got a bit hard. If you look at us, we had maybe 10 events like that. And every other organizer had a lot of these events. And suddenly before you know it, everyone will be sitting and working as they would do on a usual basis to get their work done as they're employed to do by any company. And then at the same time, they're supposed to watch an event going on online every single day. That's not going to happen, right? So it became more and more about creating the right events, the right marketing, the right delivery, the right execution, and at the same time making sure that your partners got an ROI from the money they kept spending. It's just so much work. I mean, it's twice the work as any usual year would be, and on top of that, you had obviously I got kids, so you had homeschooling and other things happening at the same time. And you obviously, as a company, we 70 people, right? So you had a lot of people to look after and take care of that were looking at the entire situation and thinking, oh my God, what's going on here? I mean, the sooner it became a reality that people weren't going back to physical event, people started to get very worried about what's going to happen with their job and all that. And I think we managed to do really well with that. But as I said, long story short, this is all because we had great support from our partners. And here I'm talking mainly the suppliers, because they're the one putting money behind this. I mean, we would be nothing without their support. So I think that shows how much SBC has grown in the industry, that people really want to support us and see us, doing well. At the same time, all affiliates, operators, other stakeholders did an amazing job to support the event as speakers and being part of it. Absolutely. And now we're planning in for next year. So all is almost coming to an end here. But now,
absolutely, I definitely. But just if we could just try and go back to March and just think when you realised that things would change for the next 6 months, what was the main emotion you felt? Was it fear? Was it adrenaline, as in this is going to be a big challenge? What was it? Try to get the human side of Rasmus here.
I think I was thinking a little bit, because I still do a lot of sales for SBC. I was thinking, oh my God, as my youngest would say, OMG. And do I really now have to go back to every single partner and renegotiate every single deal for the entire year? We spent 6 months on that, and you're supposed to do it in March and April, not even knowing what you're doing. How is that even physically possible? It's not. So you're sitting there thinking, you've done your job for the year almost by negotiating all the deals. Now you have to redo the whole thing, and it has to happen now. And on top of that, you're thinking, the only way I can do that is by coming up with a strategy for the rest of the year. How is it even possible? Because we don't know what's happening, right? We thought we could just push events. So I think it was just being completely overwhelmed with this amount of work. You just think was not possible. But at the same time, I kind of see it as a bit of a challenge and saying, oh, I gotta prove this works, because I got a big sales team. I got a whole company. If they see I can do it, they would do it as well. So we just went full on, and it worked. But it was just, I wouldn't say fear or this, just starting to be worried, definitely, about how you deal with it. Just thinking more, just feeling, how do I find the extra time to work with this, because it needs doing. There's no question. We just need to do it. So it's just trying to be as pragmatic as pragmatic can be,
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know. That's me. I rarely react with fear or
that was my
thinking
next
things
question.
can't be done. It's been one of my good traits always to find a solution.
You come across a man with tremendous self-belief. Do you ever fear? Do you ever feel fear?
I'm a very emotional guy. Don't get me wrong. I am in the way of I'm a perfectionist. I do really think about what other people say and do and all this sort of stuff. But I think it also makes me more compassionate and more understanding of other people and their problems and their issues and their way of doing things. I rarely would find myself making fun or do things on behalf of another person that wasn't to their comfort. No, because I know how I would think of these things, because I always look at myself and think I have to be a good representation of myself all the time, because everyone is looking at you and they can see how you think and feel. So you take that into consideration and you act accordingly towards other people. And I think that always made me the best salesperson I can be, because I was never an arrogant or in your face person. I was trying to do it on the terms of just being a good listener and trying to really have a good conversation around what they want and what I want, and then make that into how do we come out with the best outcome here, you know?
Nice one. And let's wrap up this fascinating chat. What's been your proudest moment of this challenging year of 2020? Can you pinpoint one moment that makes you most proud?
Um, oof. I think that there are a lot of moments, to be honest. I would say that's a very good question. I would probably say round about now, when the first real, you know, reality bit comes to life, and you're looking and thinking, where are we at? Have we done okay? I mean, we are an event organizer after all. We are hospitality. We hit harder probably than most other companies and industries. It's just a fact. You know, we live a physical events, not possible. And the first thing you do is you have to lay people off, right? Because you can't pay people salaries. So I think that's been the main thing, to try and get through the year without ending up in December or somewhere around this time and thinking now we have to start laying people off, because you never really knew what was going to happen. You try to be ahead of it by being very aggressive on ideas and sales and all that. So I think right now, realizing we actually ended the year very well and we're ready to take on 2021, I think is the first time you can sort of, you know, a little bit sort of bit of relief here, you know, thinking that we actually done pretty well, you know. So yeah, that would be it, I would say.
Absolutely. I think it's been an enormously challenging year, but you know, these digital virtual events have been really popular, and you know, we've seen that betting in Sports USA in December. It was, you know, I personally experienced that. It was a fantastically organised and interactive event, and I think, yeah, SBC should be really pleased with that. Definitely, Rasmus, it's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Chris, yeah, thanks a lot for having me, and hopefully, you know, you can use all of these many things that we have discussed, you know.
Nice one. Thank you.